For as good as that game felt this past week in the House of Horrors in Philadelphia, as the 49ers went in there, got a little revenge from back in January. I mean, I'm kind of feeling the same sentiment as the players had felt earlier this week, where, they're ready to move on to the next one. And yeah, I'm on board with them. I'm ready to move on to the next game and get to the next destination, and that is trying to lock up the most important thing, and that is the postseason spot, and more important, bigger things, which we'll get into in a bit. But that being said, as we prepare for Week 14, as the 49ers prepare for the second meeting with the Seattle Seahawks, it kind of feels a little bit strange for me in the sense because, not in the sense that, you just saw them in the second time in 3 weeks, but in the sense that you're coming off this highly emotional game, a highly intense game where the 49ers went on to have one of their best offensive showing of the season. But at the same time, it's like it was an emotional game where they really wanted to showcase what could have been back in January. And this has the potential to potentially be a little bit of a letdown showcase for San Francisco. And, most of us are hoping that's not the case. But at the same time, there's a little bit of concern there. So that being said, here we are, Week 14 of the 2023 NFL season for my San Francisco 49ers as they get ready to host the Seattle Seahawks in a game where these two teams are not even meeting each other for the second time in 3 weeks. It's like, literally, these two teams have just seen each other in not short order. So anyway, the last time these two teams met in the season, it was back on Thanksgiving, literally 2 weeks ago, as the 49ers crushed Seattle on their home turf on Thanksgiving night, and it was led by another big rushing day by Christian McCaffrey and a dominant defensive showing against Geno Smith and the Seahawks, as the 49ers exacted some long-awaited Thanksgiving revenge on the Seahawks for what they did on our turf, Levi Stadium, and they got to do it in Lumen Field in Seattle in a total beatdown on Thanksgiving night. So in terms of last week for both of these teams, for the Seahawks, Geno Smith and Seattle went to the wire. Their offense managed to score a whole bunch of points on them on a Thursday night, only on Amazon Prime Video for that Jeff Bezos money pal. But unfortunately, they surrendered a fourth quarter lead and never really got back into the game, as they failed to get beyond midfield twice on fourth down, as they fell to the Dallas Cowboys 41-35, and their playoff hopes are in serious danger, considering where other teams are at in terms of what happened afterwards, like with the Rams and the Packers on Sunday night. Yeah, Seattle's playoff hopes are kind of in danger, considering who they have to play next. Not just us, but the Eagles next. It's getting tacky for Seattle. Meanwhile, for my 49ers, in Week 13, they returned to the House of Horrors, like I alluded to earlier. They returned to the House of Horrors that recently ended their Super Bowl hopes. I'm, of course, talking about Lincoln Financial Field in the Philadelphia Eagles, as Brock Purdy and the 49ers shook off a very bad first quarter and scored on pretty much every chance they got. Every chance they had, and they scored the rest of the way in that game, while severely limiting Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, their dynamic offense, in a statement win, 42-19, and pretty much set the notion that, hey, if you didn't injure Brock Purdy, the NFC Championship game back in January would have been hell of a lot different. And if we have to meet again in Lincoln Financial Field, we could try to beat you again. So, for the 49ers, it was a resounding victory, but the players are ready to move on. You can't blame them. You really can't blame them for how they feel. They're ready to go and attain the ultimate goal, at least for right now, and that is the top seed in the NFC. And they certainly are not out of the running for that, because for the 49ers, they basically need to win out from here on in, and hope that the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 10-2, and the 49ers are one game out of that number one seed, they slip up. So the Eagles are certainly a team that the 49ers will be watching the rest of the way, because, in terms of both of these teams' schedule, the only team that the Niners should be worried about, of course, they have to worry about every team, is the Baltimore Ravens on that Christmas night matchup. So that's pretty much the only team that the 49ers could be concerned with. And maybe also the Rams, who might have something to play for in that final week. For the Eagles, it's basically that Sunday night matchup that happens later on in the night against the Cowboys. And maybe a desperate Seahawks team on Monday night that got flexed in over the Chiefs and Patriots. So we will see. But for the 49ers, this is basically their chance to try and nab the number 1 seed if the Eagles slip up. They can clinch a playoff spot this week, though, if they win here and either the Packers or the Vikings somehow manage to lose their games in an upset over either the Packers are playing the Giants and the Vikings are playing the Raiders. If either of those teams manage to lose, hell, I mean, the Niners get their playoff spot, I guess. Meanwhile, for Seattle, like I said, their own playoff hopes are on the brink because, yeah, I mean, their offense did catch some fire in that game against Dallas, but I mean, it didn't matter because, well, their defense couldn't stop Dak Prescott and the Cowboys when it mattered most in the late stages of the game. And, you know, it doesn't help with Seattle because they're already 1-3 in the division. They already got swept by the Rams. They already lost to the Niners. I believe they also lost to Arizona too. No, they won against Arizona and they still have to face them too. But that was when they didn't have Kyler Murray, so they got to be careful there. So other teams are also ahead of the curve and are playing much better than Seattle right now. So after this game, like I said, they have to play Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. And they also have to play a losing yet kind of feisty Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. The Steelers, even though they still lost, who knows if they'll get Kenny Pickett back, but it's still a kind of tough Steelers defense. And then, like I said, Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, they at least upset the Steelers a week ago. So the latter three, Titans, Steelers, Kyler Murray, and the Cardinals, they have kind of great potential to be trap games, not just for the Seattle Seahawks, but in terms of the 49ers, who also play the Cardinals, and they play the Washington Commanders a couple weeks later. A couple of trap games here and there. So that's what I'm saying with the 49ers. You pretty much cannot have a letdown game from here on out. So looking at this injury report for both of these teams, the Seahawks, the injury report was kind of surprising for them going into this game. And one of the most notable names on that list was Geno Smith. He tweaked his groin in practice on Thursday, and Pete Carroll's kind of alluding to the idea that he may not play in this game. It might be backup Drew Lock that's going to play. So if that is the case, I know some people are rejoicing. Oh, it's Drew Lock. This is gonna be a cakewalk, pal. Hold your horses there. I mean, we've played backups before, and it wasn't always that easy. Remember Jared Stidham from last season? Remember Colt McCoy from 2021 with the G League Arizona Cardinals? It wasn't always that easy to try and deal your hand with backup quarterbacks if you're San Francisco. But nonetheless, we'll find out more if Geno Smith is going to be playing on Sunday. So keep your eye closer to game time. But interesting development that this is just coming out like in short order. Some other key questionable players that were listed include the running backs, Zach Charbonnet and Kevin Walker III. Charbonnet suffered a knee injury, I believe, in that game against the Dallas Cowboys, and then Kenneth Walker has missed the last 2 games with the oblique injury. They did practice this week in limited fashion. Defensive tackle Jaron Reed, he might miss this game with the hamstring injury, and linebacker Jordan Brooks with an ankle injury. So a lot of key injuries to make note of if you're the Seahawks right now as they're trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. But I mean, for my 49ers, you have to play fair ball here too, because they actually have a couple players that are going to be out for this game. Like defensive lineman Eric Armstead, who has been, he hasn't been hitting home into the sacks, but he has been kind of key in the run game. So he's been rolled out of this game with a new knee issue, along with the foot injury that he's been having, that he suffered in the Philadelphia game. So I think Khalil Davis, who did a fine job in like garbage time, he could get some more playing time, and along with Javon Kinlaw alongside lining up with Javon Hargrave. So that'll be an interesting spot for either one of them. And then on the offensive side, offensive lineman Spencer Burford, he's not expected to go in this game, but I mean, he did fine in the Philadelphia game. Don't get me wrong, but it's like his performance has been 50-50 so far. So expect John Feliciano to go back in that spot, in that fill-in spot for him. He did fine too. And his special teams receiver, Ray McLeod, is also not expected to play in this game. He did practice this week in limited fashion, but I guess he just wasn't ready yet after missing the last couple of games with the rib injury. So, in terms of the keys to victory for both of these teams, for Seattle, I mean, it's, with the news that Geno Smith might miss this game, it's kind of hard to tell, like, how they try to approach this game. But I guess, I'm going to use the thing that I used for San Francisco this week. And that is pretty much keep it simple, stupid. And that's that fact that, you got to prepare the possibility of Drew Lock starting this game. You got to simplify the game plan, make things simple, try to adapt the run, the offense to the running game. Don't try to go too much into the deep ball. I mean, even though that's pretty much kind of what the Niners' weakness is, those big home run plays in the secondary. But, try to make things simple for Drew Lock if he ends up starting this game. If, it's Geno Smith is still in this game, well, here's what we can offer them. If Kenneth Walker and or Stack Charbonnet are in this game, let either one of those balance out the passing attack, because we haven't seen a lot of the rushing attack, being able to work, being able to produce. So that could be an opportunity for them, especially if, the fill-ins with Javon Kinlaw or Khalil Davis up in the middle, they don't do a admirable job filling in for Eric Armstead. So that could make the 49ers run defense a tad bit vulnerable. So if either one are available to play, dialing up more plays for Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, if either one are available, they could, prevent the offense from making themselves one-dimensional for Seattle. And then in the passing attack, I mean, you got to continue to get Jackson Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett more involved. I mean, they certainly got there in that game against the Cowboys, and a little bit in that first meeting against the 49ers. But you gotta keep it going. They'll need those two to escape a 49ers secondary, 49ers corners that had them pretty much in check all game on that Thanksgiving night. So if you want to have a chance, give the ball, feed more targets to Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett, because you're damn sure you're gonna have Charvarius Ward locked down on DK Metcalf. And then for my 49ers, I mean, I said it already, but actually I'll save that for last, because first things first, pretty much do what you did in the first game and do what you did in Philadelphia. Attack the secondary more than you did in the first game against Seattle. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, yeah, he was the emphasis of that Thanksgiving matchup, but Seattle's probably going to zone in more on him in this game. So Seattle's defense, their passing defense is pretty weak. It is actually pretty weak outside of that one corner. But other than that, I mean, it's still a kind of vulnerable secondary. So this is a good opportunity for Brock Purdy and the offense to have another really good passing game, whether it's on the left side or in the middle, because their linebacking core of Seattle is kind of banged up at the moment. So if they can garner Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle more targets than the usual big home run balls, and of course getting Deebo Samuel involved as well, then it'd be good signs for their postseason push. Trying to get them all in rhythm for January. And then, of course, the biggest thing I already alluded to, that biggest thing I've already said, don't let this game become a letdown. I mean, this game feels eerily similar, like at least the lead up to it is becoming eerily similar. The 49ers are coming off a big win against the Philadelphia Eagles, just like in leading up to week 6 against Cleveland. The 49ers were coming off a big win against the Dallas Cowboys, a blowout win, mind you. But then they had to go cross country to play Cleveland, the skid marks, in the wet ass weather. But I mean, I know it's kind of the opposite way around. I mean, they had to go to Philadelphia to get that big ass blowout win, and now they're coming home to face Seattle. But, at the same time, emotions are still running high from that win. I know the Niners are moving on for this game, but you never know. I mean, I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here, but hopefully they learned the lesson from the last game, for the last time they had this kind of similar situation. But they got to understand this situation. They're still in play for both the division and the top seed. In terms of the division, they can't clinch it yet because they have to win at least this game and next week's game against Arizona in Arizona, facing Kyler Murray, not Josh Dobbs anymore because he's in Minnesota, because the Rams are still technically in play for it because they are 4-1 in the division. So they're technically still alive for it. So Seattle, meanwhile, they may not have Geno Smith. And if that's the case, the Niners still need to treat this like any other game. Doesn't matter who's on the opposite side of the fence. They have to treat this game like no other. They can't do what they did back in week 6. We're playing the skid marks. They don't have Deshaun Watson. They have this guy named Dorian Thompson-Robinson. No, take care of your damn business. It's that simple. So, for the 49ers, I mean, yeah, this week 14 matchup, it does kind of feel like a little bit of a potential of a letdown game on both sides of the ball, but you have to avoid it. You have to avoid that notion of any potential letdown on both sides of the ball. You do that, you get one step closer to clinching the division next week, and another step closer to potentially stealing the NFC's top seed if Philadelphia continues to slip up. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts on this upcoming game between the Seattle Seahawks and my San Francisco 49ers in Week 14 this coming Sunday in the comments below. And, yeah, we'll see how they do. I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll be tighter than usual, but it all depends on if Seattle will have their starting quarterback. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, keep the lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And let's get that W as always. And until next time, peace out.